Last week I asked a question of us all that my spiritual director had asked of me, who is God to you? And he asked me another question, a similar question, who are you to God? And it was a hard question to answer. I found it a difficult question to answer. And again, of course, there are some really clear biblical answers to that question. We are creatures of God. God has made us. He is our creator. We are his children. We are adopted into God through baptism. We are sons and daughters of God. That's another picture that scriptures also talk about us as being co-heirs with Christ. And indeed, the whole of the scriptures would suggest that God's attitude towards us, each individual us and us as a whole, is that we are objects of God's love. But again, the real rub of that question is, how does my experience or my understanding or my own spiritual life reflect the truth versus something else? We are often confused about all of these things in different ways. Either our own fallen nature distorts our understanding of ourselves as well as our understanding of God, or attitudes of the world, the voices that we hear in the world distort that experience. Sometimes we have been sort of criticized in ways that reduce us. Sometimes we have been built up in ways that inflate us. Sometimes there are different things in the world that suggest that. And of course, there's always the deception of the evil one. The devil is always lying to us about who God is and ultimately who we are as well. But again, the question is a great question, because very often in our experience is very different than what the scriptures would suggest to me. To understand indeed that I am the object of God's love, that God on some fundamental level sees me. Hagar in the Old Testament has this beautiful experience when she's kind of rejected and sent away, or she's actually not sent away so much, sent away as she runs away from Sarai and Abram because of their treatment of her. She finds herself in the desert, and God sees her, and she even names God as the God who sees me. Often our experiences, we don't experience or have a sense of ourselves being seen by God, but then every once in a while something happens where things are broken open and we see that God sees us, understands us, and perceives us in a way that we had forgotten or misinterpreted or misunderstood. This is another great question to be asking, because again, it helps us sort of contrast our experience and our assumptions, perhaps the lies of the world, the flesh, and the devil, versus what, again, the scriptures tell us about who we are to God. So again, another great question to sit with, to perhaps have conversations with, and to wonder, what does that mean? And what does the scriptures say that correct my own perhaps distorted experience of who I am within the context of God's love and his mercy?